Hi there, everyone. Welcome to The Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's September 5th. If you've struggled to grow tomatoes successfully, maybe it's time to give cucumbers a try. They're much easier to grow than tomatoes. Just add some organic matter to the soil and mulch around the base of the plant. Cucumbers benefit from support, so installing a trellis for the vines to climb is a good idea, and that's it. The saying, cool as a cucumber, refers to the fact that it's about 20 degrees cooler on the inside of a cucumber. And cucumbers contain loads of nutrients like magnesium, vitamin C, and potassium. Cucumbers are 96% water, and the phytochemicals in cucumbers kill the bacteria that causes bad breath. Just slice a cucumber and press it to the roof of your mouth, and in less than a minute, you'll have better smelling breath. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of the first collector and cataloger of Canadian plant specimens, naturalist Michel Sarrazin, who was born on this day in 1659. In France, Sarrazin was trained to be a surgeon. By the age of 25, he was appointed to help the troops headed over the ocean to colonize Canada. When he arrived in Canada, he tended to both the troops and civilians in Quebec and Montreal. Helping sick people was dangerous work. In his early 30s, Sarrazin himself became ill, and in short order, he returned to France to receive more medical training. Sarrazin spent 3 years in France, obtaining his doctorate of medicine and finding himself spending more and more time at the Botanical Garden in Paris. It wasn't long before he met the nobleman and botanist Joseph Pitton de Tournefort. Tournefort was an excellent teacher. He was the first botanist to develop the idea of creating a genus for different plants. Later, Sarrazin would report that it was Tournefort who stimulated his lifelong interest in collecting and classifying plants. Rested, educated, and passionate about horticulture, Sarrazin returned to Canada, and he kept in touch with Tournefort through correspondence. He would send back various specimens of North American plants. Tournefort, in turn, would share Sarrazin's discoveries with the Royal Academy of Science back in France. Sarrazin's most noted discovery was Sarracenia purpurea, the pitcher plant, which Linnaeus would name in his honor. The pitcher plant grew in wetlands, bogs, and marshes around Quebec. From a medicinal standpoint, pitcher plant was amazing. It was discovered to be effective against smallpox. Ever the doctor, Sarrazin had studied the powerful pitcher plant. Incredibly, it was Michel Sarrazin who first suspected that the plant actually caught insects and ate them. When he shared his thoughts in writing, the academic community rejected his theory. But nearly 200 years later, Charles Darwin would validate Sarrazin's hypothesis in his work called Insectivorous Plants. There's a fascinating side note in the Sarrazin biography. Sarrazin was the first doctor to perform a mastectomy in North America. His patient was a 38-year-old nun, and her prognosis was so grim that Sarrazin was certain she would die without the surgery. Sarrazin acted quickly. The surgery was a success. The nun recovered, and she lived a full life until the age of 77. Today, in 1857, the Harvard botanist Asa Gray received a confidential letter from Charles Darwin. In the letter, Darwin wrote, "I will enclose the briefest abstract of my notions on the means by which nature makes her species. I ask you not to mention my doctrine." 2 years later, Darwin revealed his concept of natural selection in his book on the origin of species. And today is the birthday of the botanist Catherine Warrington, who was born on this day in 1897. Warrington was a twin in a family with 5 girls. After college, she ended up working with an entomologist who was researching the black fly. The point of the research was to make beans taste bad to the fly. Researchers took turns applying various elements to the beans, and in the process, Warrington discovered that boron was essential to plant growth. 2 years later, Warrington published her work, amazing the scientific community at her discovery, and also at the unlikely scenario of a scientist making a major discovery with their first research project after college. In Unearthed Words, here's a poem from Andrew Marvell called Thoughts in a Garden. What wondrous life is this I lead? Ripe apples drop about my head. The luscious clusters of the vine upon my mouth do crush their wine. The nectarine and curious peach into my hands themselves do reach. Stumbling on melons as I pass, ensnared with flowers, I fall on grass. Today's book recommendation is Tussie Mussies by Geraldine Laufer. This book on Tussie Mussies is subtitled The Victorian Art of Expressing Yourself in the Language of Flowers. It came out in 1993. Laufer's book does a wonderful job of explaining the art of sending floral messages. Tussie Mussies were originally called talking bouquets or word posies. She describes how to make them. It's simpler than you might think. And she also shares how the meanings of herbs and flowers have changed over time. Laufer has been called a floral poet, and she gives step-by-step instructions for how to make 60 different bouquets or Tussie Mussies to express love, wish someone a happy birthday or congratulations, express sympathy, and commemorate celebrations like the birth of a baby, a wedding anniversary, or a family gathering. For today's garden chore, reconsider adding coleus to your garden. Coleus went through a resurgence a decade or so ago. For many gardeners, it's a yearly addition to the garden. If you have a shady garden, coleus can add tremendous color. Nowadays, there are sun coleus that can handle sunny gardens as well. The Brazilian garden designer Roberto Burle Marx considered coleus a favorite. Over the years, your attraction to coleus may subside, but as with any old favorite, they can find their way back into your heart. Visit one garden with a beautiful planting of coleus complementing the perfect perennials, and you'll be looking to add coleus back into your garden. And here's a little tip about coleus. Coleus has a natural rooting hormone, so use coleus water as you would willow water, or plant coleus next to other plants to help them get established. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day in 1882, the Ipswich Journal out of Suffolk, England, included this little snippet in an article reviewing some of the oldest tombstones in Suffolk. Here's what it said. In a secluded, unpretending graveyard, there is an epitaph to Edward Ward, age 92, who died in 1804, who, it appears, was gardener at Troston Hall for upwards of 70 years. His tombstone has this inscription: "Thus thy long round of years and toils fulfilled. Rest, good old man, no more to fear or hope from the returning seasons and their change, till the great spring arrive and call the forth to bloom, we trust and fruits on earth unknown." And the article adds this little sentence: "The above forcibly illustrates the long servitude prevailing in Suffolk above a century ago, for it was reckoned that the family of Wards had been employed by the same family for 200 years. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.